In this video, I'm going to make a still life study. Next week, we're going to make a fully developed still life drawing from the studies that you make this week. I go over the selection, setup, and lighting of your still life objects in the slides. The large sheet of newsprint that I'm going to be drawing on is a bit intimidating, so I'm starting out by making a study at a scale that I'm more familiar with. I'm sitting in front of the still life and there's light coming through the window. The trees outside are swaying around in the breeze. It's really pleasant to just sit down and draw for a little bit. Here's the still life that I'm going to be drawing. And here's my first study. This is just for me to warm up. This still life could be drawn more than one way. You could crop or you could select what part of it you're going to draw. There's my warm-up drawing on top of the piece of paper. I've sped up this whole process 4 times life speed, and this is so you can see me do almost the whole drawing. This drawing takes a little more than a half an hour to make. You should budget about this much time for each of the 4 drawings that you're going to make this week. I tried to set up the camera so that I wouldn't be in the frame, but now that I see it, it's actually useful because you can see that I look toward the right off the drawing pad about half the time. So I'm actually studying the still life as much as I'm sketching in the composition. I frequently erase the lines with my fingers. I don't even bother to stop and grab an eraser at this point. I'm drawing with vine charcoal, and this is one of the benefits of using this material. I'm sorting out the composition using lines, but the point of your drawings this week is actually to define forms using value. So pretty quickly, I'm going to start adding value into this drawing. The drapery behind the still life makes the background more interesting. You're going to need to fill the entire piece of paper when you draw your still life. So you might as well get used to that idea now and cover the whole sheet of newsprint as you're drawing. If you remember the sketch that I made to warm up, you'll see that the way I'm drawing here is effectively just a larger scale version of the scribbly lines. I slowed the video down a bit just so you could see that I grabbed a cotton ball to use to blend the vine charcoal. This is a handy technique. Later in the drawing process, the cotton ball will have a bunch of charcoal on it, and I'll actually use that as a drawing tool as well. I'm trying to establish values without a bunch of lines this week, so I'm thinking that the blending is going to be important. Even though I'm starting to have a composition that makes sense, I still look at the still life all the time to establish which values are correct. And I just moved that vase shape because it was just in the wrong place. You'll find working with vine charcoal that it can go down quite dark, but as soon as you blend it, it lightens up dramatically. What I'm trying to do here is establish very dark values and mid-tone values, and then I'll go back and add the values that are in between. I'm really only using 4 tools in this drawing. I'm drawing with the vine charcoal, blending with my fingertip or the cotton ball, and I also use the eraser. And sometimes you can't really tell which tool I have in my hand. If I could figure out how to show that better, I would. One thing you'll notice that's different from the small preparatory sketch that I made or warm-up sketch that I made is I'm using my whole arm to draw with. This is totally different than working at the scale of the sketch pad. And it's very important that you learn how to do this. When you get to this point on a drawing like this, it's pretty tempting to quit. It's important that you just keep going though. What I'm doing is different, completely different from the way I draw a perspective drawing where you make a grid first and then make the drawing follow the grid. I'm actually trying to draw not the details first. I'm trying to draw broad areas of value first and then go back and find the details. So it's a completely different way of thinking. And I find it a bit of a challenge to make a drawing like this where it seems like it's all not working. You just have to keep going, and it will usually sort itself out as you go. One of my jobs is to make this an interesting composition, and I intentionally set up the drawing so that it would be light on the left and darker on the right-hand side. And I unintentionally put that vase right smack dab in the middle of the paper. That's kind of a bad idea for the composition. I want it to be a little bit um, more dramatic than that. I want it to have a little bit of asymmetry in the drawing. And I didn't realize that I had moved the vase right to the center until after I was finished. This is one of the reasons why you're working on studies first. You actually want to work out the composition so that when you spend a lot of time drawing just one drawing, it's good. It's laid out. It's worth it. It's worth investing the time. This drawing is more closely resembling what I'm looking at now, and I'm a little more pleased with what I'm doing. You just have to get to this point, and then the drawing can start to take care of itself. It's probably hard to tell what I'm doing, but I'm erasing and then blending, and so this it helps to make the values smoother in some parts of the drawing. And notice that I take big blocky shapes and then erase them and then go back and put the detail in where it really belongs. I'll slow down the video again for a second here. You can see that the piece of charcoal I started with is almost gone. You can also see in the drawing that I've been doing a little bit of erasing. I'm drawing with light rather than with dark. Having an all-over value on the paper helps to be able to draw this way. And I'm going to switch to the eraser and do a little more lightening and a little more defining by making the edges between values stronger, sharper. I'm getting close to the end of this drawing, so I slowed the video back down to real time. And you can see that in reality, I don't draw super fast all the time. I'm still looking carefully, even though I have the form pretty well structured on the paper. This is as much about looking as it is about making marks on the paper. I've really found this process to be rewarding. I really enjoyed losing myself in the making of this drawing, and I hope that you can find your still life objects as interesting as I find mine to draw. Finding the time to make these drawings is a challenge for all of us. I think it's important to just make that time and make it a priority. You're really here to learn how to draw better, and you'll only do that by drawing. Here, I'll use the cotton ball to draw with. It's a really good tool to lay in broad areas of value. All of your studies this week don't need to be this resolved. You should experiment with the drawing methods and definitely try and fill the whole page with marks and values. Draw for at least the required time this week because it'll set you up for success next week when you make a fully realized drawing of your still life.